good afternoon, morning, evening, depending on where you are, from Beirut, Lebanon. Well, an old trick for those who have worked with me before know that I'm a big storyteller. So I rely a lot on pictures, and I rely a lot on stories, and I would not fail to that today. Basically, we have three keywords shaping our presentation today: ecosystems, evaluation, and VOPs. So let me get a bit of musing on each of these topics. Let's start with the ecosystem. The story goes as follows. A little camel, here in the region, we rely a lot on camels, was asking his mother, can I ask you some questions? And the mother said, of course, yes, please. And then he said, why do camels have humps, Mom? And the mother said, we are desert animals. We're known to survive without water. And the hump is essential in keeping us alive in the desert. And then it goes like, why our legs are round, our legs are tall, and our feet are round. And then the mother said, dear, in the desert, there's sand, so you need long feet and round hoof to be able to walk in the desert. And then he said, one more question, Mom. Why our eyelashes are so long? Sometimes it bothers my sight. And the mother said, well, naturally, son, because in the desert, there's a lot of sun, there's a lot of dust, so sand, wind, so you need long eyelashes to get you going. So the little camel is doing a recap. So basically, humps are to store water because we are in the desert. The legs are for walking through the desert. The eyelashes are to protect our eyes from the sand in the desert. What the hell are we doing in the zoo? What's the moral of the zoo story? The moral of the zoo story, my dear friends, is in line with what Rajib and Asela were saying. There are rules, there are laws, there are systems, but if the VOPEs do not mirror these laws, these systems, these needs into their daily work, then it would be a zoo, trapped in the zoo. So when we, have a very fancy system for fighting corruption, and we sit very strongly in the bottom of the corruption index, then the VOPE has something to do. When we speak about development and poverty alleviation and fancy terms, and nothing is happening on the ground, then the VOPE has something to say. And of course, the VOPE is not a political party, although somewhere there is a bit of activism that should be involved. But the fatal tool in the hand of a VOPE is evaluation. And hence, I would say the first takeaway, also looking at the number of countries and the number of VOPEs and the governance challenges and everything, every valid thing that Asela has mentioned. Obviously, we have a problem on many fronts. VOPEs cannot be in the zoo. The place of the VOPEs is in the societies they serve. So that is maybe my first takeaway on ecosystems. There's a lot more, but in 15 minutes, that's how it goes. Now let's go to evaluation. Asela mentioned eval partners, and we keep on mentioning M&E, monitoring and evaluation. It's like Siamese twins that cannot be cut. But in practice, there is a lot of emphasis on monitoring and far less emphasis on evaluation. In other terms, if we go into the eval hospital, if we have the tools and the techniques and the people who can do the monitoring, it's just like setting up the hospital and having, you know, the operation rooms and the admin staff and everybody around, but not the doctors who keep the hospital going. So basically, the message is to stop using M&E, you know, interchangeably. Monitoring is a discipline, has its tools, has its art, has its uses, and evaluation is the meta view on that puts monitoring into perspective. It's the beating heart. It's the doctors that keep the eval hospital going strong. Another thing is that for those of us who work in monitoring and evaluation, we are often focused on measuring inputs and determining the efficiency and effectiveness and coherence of outputs, etc. While, as also Rajib and Asela were saying, the focus should be on the results. And what are the results? The results are the profound changes, what I would call the transformational processes, through which any development initiative, any policy, any action that is being taken for the people, and hopefully by the people, you know, leads to a certain positive transformation in the lives of these people. And hence, there is a call, on one hand, of course, to work on professionalization, to work on systems, to work on definitions, to decolonize, to what have you. But again, the beating heart of all of these processes is to be able to focus on people. And Asela was mentioning the voluntary national reviews or reports that are being submitted to the General Assembly of the UN to say how good or how brilliant governments were in achieving the SDGs. But the work of our colleagues at EVAL SDGs have shown that a lot of these voluntary national reviews do contain a lot of poetry, a lot of literature, and a little evidence, and that they are primarily built on let's say, monitoring data, what is happening, but not taking the challenge or the extra step of going into analyzing what has happened. So evaluation should be at the center. And when we speak about VOPEs, about voluntary organizations for professional evaluation, then evaluation should be at the core, my friends. Otherwise, let's call ourselves VOMEs, so for professional monitoring rather than evaluation. And let's speak finally a few thoughts on VOPEs. I really love this cartoon. And the skipper is saying, well, I've got it too, Omar, a strange feeling that we've been going in circles. And if you look at this cartoon, it's basically because those with big hands, government, UN, you know, those who have the resources are taking the boat somewhere. But there's the rest of the crowd, the users, the CSOs, the VOPEs, everybody who is on the same boat, who does not have these muscles. So basically, it's a plea for a smarter distribution of resources, for mixing up, possibly bring 2 to the left, take 2 to the right, so that the effort in taking this eval boat into destination, does not turn in circles, but rather sails in the right direction. And this is also very important and at the core of the work of the VOPEs. I come from the global south. As Asela mentioned, I've had the pleasure and the honor of leading IOC, of leading EVAL partners in 2015-16, when all the beautiful things like EVAL SDGs and EVAL Youth and what have you were being born and being nurtured. And I've seen that the big struggle is how you ensure that VOPEs, who are the father and the mother of the bride, I mean, the custodians of the evaluation at the national and at the regional level, are struggling to find the needed resources to be on par with everybody else who is on the boat. And after that, don't ask me why the boat is going in circles. The boat is going in circles because resources are not distributed in an equitable way. And unfortunately, again, especially in the global south, we tend to play the game. So if somebody comes with a bit of money and say, do this, we're going to go and do this, because if we don't do it, we're not going to have the resources to do that and that and that and that. So in that sense, when we speak about VOPEs having a mission, having a vision, having a solid anchorage, leading by example in terms of governance, being proactive and hunting for resources, etc., 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 this should be at the core of the work of the VOPEs. And last but not least, something that is really dear to my heart. One more thing before. Look at this picture. What does it remind you? Well, at least for me, it reminds me when all these beautiful conferences. I mean, yeah, I was lucky to be in charge when we were able to travel and cross the 6 continents and meet people and talk without masks, and don't worry if we're vaccinated and if there's a delta and a beta and an epsilon and what have you. But typically, most of our conferences would end in a picture like this one. While to me, something like this picture is more important. What happens after we talk? What happens after we discuss? What happens after we negotiate? What happens after all our annual conferences? I mean, at the core of the work of all the VOPEs are annual conferences at a local level and at a regional level and at an international level. But what actions are being derived? How is empowerment being translated? This is, in my opinion, a key issue that also needs to be embedded in the work of the VOPEs. So at the end of the year, don't tell me how many events you organized. Tell me how many inertias you have shaped, how many actions you have taken, how many policies, how many programs became better because of your presence. And this is how VOPEs get their relevance. And last but not least, I love this picture. That was in Nepal in 2015 when we were launching EVAL SDGs. And these are what was then the nucleus of EVAL Youth, and that later became that big movement you all know. When I look back at this golden era, 6 or 7 years later now, I realized that we've done a lot. We've moved in the right direction. We've grown. Like when I look today, 75 people, I probably don't know 60 or 70 of them. That is an achievement. The community is growing. More people are getting interested. More people are seeing evaluation as their vocation, as their job. But here, let me say, if it's just a job, forget about it. It should be passion first, job and success will follow up. Anyway, back to this picture when they were proudly holding, and these were hot from the press. 2015, the goals have been hot from the press. But now I look forward and seeing more active. I look forward and seeing Mr. Elon Musk speaking about evaluation. I look forward having Mrs. Kardashian talking about evaluation. I look forward having Greta Thunberg around her messages about equity, speaking about evaluation. The message here is that in order not to reach a glass ceiling where we become those same people meeting virtually and face to face and talking about evaluation and various circles, we need to expand our horizons. We need to bring influential people in India and Sri Lanka, in Philippines and Mongolia and all the countries that are served by APEA and elsewhere, so that they become, alongside with us, not only advocates, but they create new opportunities and new markets for evaluation. That is everything I wanted to say. Thank you.